It is what it is, folks. you know, you know, uh, a lot of celebrities are Republicans secretly, but I don't want to get too bogged down in that. Matter, I take that back. This is sort of a good segue to a new segment that we're going to start doing to this show called Coon Watch. Because the Republican Party has decided that they are tired of losing the much of the minority vote to the Democratic Party. They have decided that they are going to recruit some people of color to offset the 60, 70 year advantage that the Democrats have. And so we're going to examine this in our new segment, Coon Watch. Yes. Here come the coons. First and foremost, we've got Tim Scott, who one of our callers brought up last week, who is running for president. Tim Scott. Now, he is running on what all these black Republicans are running on, which is the idea that you've heard America is a racist country. Well, I'm here to tell you that I'm black and these racist white people like me. So that's sort of his stance here. So this is what he had to say about it.
If it's possible for a broken kid in a broken home to rise beyond their circumstances, the answer is yes. And for those of you who wonder if America is a racist country, take a look at how people come together. All of God's people come together. Black ones and white ones, and red ones and brown ones, working together. Because love, unconditional love, binds hearts together. We are not defined by the color of our skin. We are defined by the content of our character. And if anyone tells you anything different, they're lying.
All I got to say to that is,
look at the coons. Oh, look at the coons. Always cooning for you. Look at the coons. Look at the coons. Always cooning for you.
so to who is Tim Scott? We have to ask that question. Who exactly is Tim Scott? He is the junior senator from South Carolina since the year 2013. He was actually appointed to the U.S. Senate by the governor of South Carolina and upcoming Coon Watch subject, Nikki Haley, in 2013. He retained his seat after winning a special election in the year 2014 and was elected to 2 full terms in 2016 and 2022. Now, before his election to the Senate, he was elected to the House of Representatives in South Carolina, and he served 1 term in the South Carolina General Assembly, served on the Charleston County Council from 1995 to 2009, and before entering politics, he worked in financial services. Now, he is one of 11 black people to have served in the U.S. Senate, and the first to have served in both chambers of Congress. So you hear this man right here in the audio just say that America's not a racist country. But in a country that is 250 years old, only 11 black people have served in the U.S. Senate. In 250 years. And he has the nerve to say that America is not a racist country. He is only the 7th African American to be elected to the Senate and the 4th from the Republican Party. He is the first African American senator from South Carolina. He is the first African American senator from the South to be elected since 1881. The first senator to be elected from the South, the first black senator from the South to be elected since 1881. The first African American Republican to serve in the Senate since Edward Brooke departed in 1979. Now, this grift is a very, very common grift. I always tell you guys on this show to listen to The Funky Academic. He's on YouTube, The Funky Academic. Ear me, O Safer and Pong. This man drops lots of wisdom. And one of the pearls of wisdom that I always use from him is there is no more lucrative career path for a person of color. Listen now. There is no more lucrative career path for a person of color than telling white people what they want to hear. Period. If you tell white people what they want to hear and make white people feel the way they want to feel, I don't care if it's Republican white people and you are, Tim Scott and Larry Elder and Candace Owens and Sheriff John Clark, or if you're a liberal like Joy Reid and the Obamas of the world and Kamala Harris, if you are willing to prostrate yourself and tell white people what they want to hear, the whole world is yours. And Tim Scott, he's somebody who really understands that. He gets it. He gets that. Now, this is him talking about the left supposedly weaponizing race for power.
This is what the left is famous for doing. They want to weaponize race, not for progress. Not for progress, for power. They are using the issue of race to control the outcome of elections to protect themselves. I oftentimes hear the left weaponizing race whenever they are in the midst of a losing streak. Something becomes racist. Civil War, exactly, Civil War. Started in Charleston, South Carolina.
Now, I just told you he's only one of 11 black people to ever serve in Congress as a senator. One of 11. The first black man to be elected in the South since 1881. And it is the left who is weaponizing race for political power. I only got one thing to say to that.
Look at the coons. Oh, look at the coons. Always cooning for you. Look at the coons. Look at the coons. Always cooning for you.
Oh, man. Now, somebody like Tim Scott would be funny in how pathetic his pandering is to white America. But his political pandering has a certain amount of danger in it for the black community because he validates racist policies that hurt the black community. Like in January of 2001, the Department of Justice sued Charleston County, South Carolina for racial discrimination under the Voting Rights Act because its council seats were based on at-large districts. The Department of Justice had attempted to negotiate with county officials on this issue, in November of 2000. The justice officials noted that at-large seats dilute the voting strength of the significant African American minority in the county, which made up 35% of the population. But because of the rules, their political power was diffused drastically. Leading to a lot less power for the black community in Charleston County. Now, he was the only African American member of the county council. And this is what he had to say of the case and the alternative of elected council members from single member districts. He said, "I don't like the idea of segregating everyone into smaller districts. Besides, the Justice Department assumes that the only way for African Americans to have representation is to elect an African American, and the same for whites. Obviously, my constituents don't think that's true." The Department of Justice argued that the issue was not a question of ethnicity, but they stated that voters in black precincts rejected Tim Scott as a candidate. The lawsuit noted that because of the white majority, the white bloc usually results in defeat for candidates who are preferred by black voters. The department added that black people live in compact areas of the county and could be a majority in 3 districts if county seats were appropriated as a 9 single-member district. And guess what? The Department of Justice won the case. They were able to prove that it was racist how South Carolina's congressional seats were split up. I'm sorry, how their council districts were set up. The federal court found that the former method violated the Voting Rights Act following a lawsuit brought by the Justice Department. Again, Scott declined to join the Congressional Black Caucus because, as he said, once again, he doesn't like segregating people based on race. He just likes pandering to people who like segregating people based on race. In March 2011, he co-sponsored a welfare reform bill that would deny food stamps to families whose incomes declined to the point of eligibility because a family member was participating in a labor strike. He introduced legislation in 2011 to strip the NLRB, which is the National Labor Relations Board, of its power to prohibit employers from relocating to punish workers who join unions or strike. So what he did was he supported making life even harder for people in labor unions who are on strike. Now, black people have always disproportionately made up union membership in this country, at least in modern history. I'll say in modern history. In a few weeks, we're probably going to talk about how black people were kept out of the trades and trade unions. I might even tell you my story of how I was kept out of the trades in one way. But black people still have a disproportionate membership to unions because the public sector is one of the first places that hired black people, especially, we were able to work in schools and things like that. In 2018, Scott was one of 36 Republican senators to sign a letter seeking to preserve the North American Free Trade Agreement by modernizing it for the 21st century. So, NAFTA, one of the most destructive policies to working class and poor people in America. One of the main reasons that we have illegal immigrants coming from Mexico is because NAFTA destroyed the corn farmers and other working class people who were making a living in Mexico. It destroyed their ability to make a living in the late 90s when they started bringing those maquiladoras to Mexico. Actually, the working class in Mexico, Canada, and the United States have all suffered under NAFTA. So there's a lot of people in America who think that, oh man, Mexico's making out like a fat rat thanks to NAFTA. No, the working class is poor thanks to NAFTA too in Mexico. Those maquiladoras are basically slave labor. And that's not even mentioning the amount of murders that they had. A lot of the women who were working in those factories were targeted, like thousands of them were targeted, raped, murdered brutally in those border towns that a lot of American companies moved to. I always like to remind you guys, when Ross Perot's birthday comes around and we cover him in the Happy segment, he told Bill Clinton and he told George H.W. Bush that there was going to be a giant sucking sound. You can look it up. It's famous. A very famous speech called the Giant Sucking Sound speech. Okay? Where he told Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush that this policy, NAFTA, that they were pushing was going to destroy the working class in America. And it has. Ronald Reagan started it. Bill Clinton finished it up, just like all the other horrible things in our society that Ronald Reagan started in the 80s and Bill Clinton either codified in the law or amped up in the 90s, like the war on drugs and the prison industrial complex. But that's neither here nor there. And Tim Scott is one of the people who, once again, is supporting this. This free trade agreement that destroyed America's, well, one of the things that helped destroy America's working class. One of the few things Donald Trump got right, that a lot of the corporate liberals like Obama and Trump and Clinton, Obama, Clinton, and Biden and these people didn't get right, was coming out hard against NAFTA and the trade relations with China. That's why Trump won. Not because of Russia. One of the reasons he won, at least. Really, the one gift that he gave the Republican Party was allowing them to ditch their support for stuff like NAFTA and PNTR with China and TPP, which Hillary Clinton supported in public 43 times before she decided to disavow it because she saw how unpopular it made her. So overall, Tim Scott, a black Republican, a shameless individual who is willing to pander to the most base instincts of white America that black people and the left just can't compete without weaponizing race. And that's what essentially he's trying to build a whole candidacy on. He's trying to build an entire candidacy on this. When we get back, we're going to talk about some more challenges in the 2024 Republican primaries. Because he ain't by himself. He ain't by himself. And if you thought only black people can coon, oh man, you're going to want to stay tuned. You're going to want to stay tuned. Here on Issues and Answers with My Country with Scott Cannon. Give me a call, 219-885-1371. That number again, 219-885-1371. I'll be right back after these.